Welcome to the Smart Legacy Podcast, your resource for protecting assets and securing your future. Hosted by Stockton and Kandt, join us as we cover essential estate planning and elder law topics, such as wills, trusts, and Medicaid planning. Stockton and Kandt, your trusted attorney advisors in safeguarding what matters most. Welcome to another episode of the Smart Legacy Podcast. I'm your host and attorney Glenn Stockton. I'm managing attorney for the law firm of Stockton and Kandt. We have offices here in the Kansas City area in Overland Park, as well as down in Gardner, Kansas, down in southwest Johnson County. In studio with me today, I have my daughter and partner attorney, Sophia Kandt. So welcome, Sophia.
Thank you.
All right. Today's topic, we want to talk today about how to talk to your family about your estate plan. Right? The importance of the family meeting, as we like to refer to it as.
Right. So we've done the plan. We've made the decisions. We've chosen who's going to fill what role, who's going to get what, all of those things we've gone through. We've made that decision. And then we put it up and we move on. No, and that's why this is important to talk about, is that we need to communicate now those decisions and make sure that everybody that needs to know, be in the know, is in the know, and we've shared that information. So, what happens if we don't share this information, right? We've created this perfect plan. We've gone down every rabbit hole. We've prepared for any and everything that may or may not happen. We've been very comprehensive, but we haven't shared this plan with our trusted family members, anybody involved in the plan. Well, when that time comes that we actually need to use the plan, it's time to go. Well, we're incapacitated or upon our death. Well, who knows about your plan? Do they know that you even have a plan in place? So that can cause a lot of, surprises, right? Though they had a plan, I didn't even know they had a plan. Well, yes, they had a plan, and actually you've been chosen to serve in this role. Well, I didn't even know I was serving in this role. What is this role? I didn't know about the role. I don't have the time to do it. By not sharing this information with your family, with your trusted loved ones, that you have a plan and what that plan is, it can create a lot of mistrust, potentially some broken relationships because you've done some things in the plan that you didn't share, maybe why you had a really good intention as to why you did this. You didn't share that with them. It can cause a lot of maybe arguments and conflict down the road, confusion as well. Well, she did this, but maybe she didn't really mean to do this because it's unclear, and she never told us that she was going to do this. And so it just can create a lot of confusion and conflict and concerns and issues. So when we have a plan in place, it's so important to then share that plan. You don't have to share every last detail of it, but share what needs to be shared. And that's something that we like to facilitate with our clients. We call that the family meeting. So after, where in the process do we do it? Well, typically we try to do this at the end of the process. So we've gone through, we've made these decisions, and now we need to share that with them. So we call that the family meeting. We like to do it with our clients, and, not everyone takes us up on it. And if they don't, every year we're asking them again, do you want to do that family meeting? Maybe they've done it before and it's been 10 years. You're ready to have that family meeting again. We really value this.
I think it goes into, what we tell clients all the time, that transparency goes a long ways, being very transparent about what's happening. And people need to know where to find things when the time comes. So we've created clarity around their roles, what the roles are, where they'll find things. And we see value in this. We don't charge our clients for it. It's kind of like the annual review meetings. We're not charging our clients for the annual review meetings. We don't charge for the family meeting, but we sure as heck benefit from it because our clients look to us if they have future legal needs rather than the attorney down the street. And then a lot of times these kids and family members become clients of ours as well, and we're representing multi-generations. Not that that's a requirement, but we find that it's beneficial to us to do these, but it's also very beneficial for our families. So I think the timing issue you brought up is important. Most of the time we're not asking the kids, what should the plan be? We're doing the planning first, and then we're having the family and we say, okay, kids, here's what you need to know about the plan. Here's where we're going to find the plan when the time comes. Here's what your roles are. Here's, who the attorney is. You don't have to remember this stuff. Just, if you can remember to call them, because that's one of our goals for every client we have, to be one of the very first calls our clients or their loved ones make if there's a serious health diagnosis, a death. They win the lottery. I want to know that too.
Right.
But we want to be that in that trusted inner circle of advisors to our clients. And if we treat it as a transaction, that's probably never going to happen.
Right.
And that's unfortunately how most people approach estate plan. They treat it as, it was all about the documents, and nobody knows about them. I was at a workshop, presenting on this, teaching on this just earlier this week. And there was a gentleman that was in attendance. This was at a library, and he was in attendance. And he told me of a situation where with his parents, they had lived here in Kansas, and they had a will, but nobody found the will. Nobody knew they had a will. And they didn't discover this will until almost a year after the passing of the second parent. Both mom and dad died fairly close in time to one another, within a few months of each other. And they didn't find it until almost a year after the second one died. And then they found, and he's like, they told us the will wasn't any good, that it expired. And I said, well, within Kansas, a will to be valid has to be filed in with the court, recorded with the court within 6 months of death, or yes, it's as if you died without a will. And so he had experienced that. So we were just talking about how do you avoid that happening? Well, the family meetings, a big part of how we make sure that the family knows that you have a plan, what the plan is, where they're going to find it, and again, what the rules are.
Right. I've had several different experiences as, people come in and they meet with me and they did an estate plan previously, or their parent did an estate plan previously, but it's clear to me that they never had a family meeting. They never shared, the parent never shared this information with the child. I've met with people who mom and dad, they did their estate plan and something happened. They became incapacitated, and now that backup role, they were just kind of thrown into that role. They started serving as trustee and power, under the power of attorney. They started to fill these roles, but they were kind of thrown into this. They've got a lot going on in their life, but they did it. They picked up the role, and that worked well for a period of time. But then they got busy, and things just started to not happen, and information wasn't being shared. And I think that in this situation, oftentimes the trustees, the people serving in these roles, they have good intentions, but life gets to them, right? They get busy. And so now parents haven't shared the plan. Nobody in the family besides this one person who's been appointed as trustee, has all the documents. Nobody else knows where the documents are, and nobody knows who can step in and fill the role if this trustee can no longer do it. Or what if the trustee is mismanaging the funds? Then how do we remove the trustee? Is there even a way to do that? Where is where are the documents? So if the parents would have just shared this information with the family ahead of time, then that could have resolved a lot of issues. And I see this just time and time again, why, it's so important to have this conversation. You've done the plan. You've done the hard work. You've set all of this up. You've made those hard decisions ahead of time. You don't want it to just be an expensive, fancy document that you're not going to hang it up on a wall, right? There's more to it. It actually needs to play out. And so that would be that next step, is to share that information.
And I think oftentimes we see when we haven't shared this information, and maybe only, the person who's the trustee or the executor, they're the ones who know about the plan, and nobody else even really knows if there is a plan, what the plan is. Right. It creates mistrust. And the person who does know, we put them in an awkward position. did mom and dad or whoever, do they
Right.
want me to share this information, because they never shared it, so except with me, or maybe they didn't even share it with them, so
Right.
they're not sure what they should do. The other ones, they haven't seen the documents. They feel like
Right.
there's this, there's automatically mistrust. They don't know if funds are being used correctly. So as I said earlier, creating transparency goes a long ways in keeping the peace and just creating clarity about who's going to serve what roles, how work's to be done. There's plenty of work to give around.
Right.
Good planning does not mean there's nothing to do. It just makes it easier.
Right.
Okay, so having the family meeting, hopefully people understand, guys, this is important. Get your plan done, but then share the plan, right?
Right.
And we talked about typically that's going to be after the plan's done. We're not asking what we should do, although there's times, we want to get their input into the plan. Certainly if they're going to play different roles, are they willing to do so? But most of the time, I would even say that, okay, it's assumed they're going to play some roles, and we share with them what the roles are, and we can adjust if they're not willing to serve it. But if we've thought this through, our clients, their number one goal, I don't want to be a burden.
Right.
So we think that through as we divide up the roles and how we do things. So we're having it after the plan's done. You mentioned that maybe revisiting it from time to time.
Right. Yeah.
when-
I mean, this is something that, like I said, life happens, things happen, family dynamics change, people marry, divorce, die, move away, move to the other side of the country, have children, get new jobs that are busy. All of these things happen. And so revisiting it with the people that you've appointed within the plan as well, to make sure, hey, you've been appointed in this big role. Are you still able and willing to fill this role? I think is very important. Another big thing is, remember, where are the documents? When we always have copies of all of the documents that our clients sign. We always keep those, and if the time comes that those documents need to be used, then we've got copies of those. But we may not be in the office, or we may not be able to share certain information with certain individuals. There may be some times where it's we don't have the ability to provide that information. We're not there, and so sharing where are these documents located is incredibly important. I've met with several different families over time that they actually didn't even know that their parent had a trust. And the only way that they found out that they had a trust was because we were looking at the deed on file with the county for the home to find out, oh, the house is owned by a trust, and it says that it's dad's trust, mom's trust, and that's the only way we found out that there was even a trust. Then we have to go track it down. So, yeah, I mean, having that regular conversation, reminding them even, hey, I've done it. This is where it is. I've moved it. It's in a new location. Keeping them up to date, because they've got a lot going on. They're not going to remember any and everything that was shared in that first meeting. So.
I think, to that, there's several things that come in. One, they're not necessarily going to remember what all the roles were. They remember we had the family meeting. We want them to know there was a plan in place. So within our firm and with our clients, what we want to make sure is, that they know, and again, I'm painting with a broad brush, use mom and dad. It's not always mom and dad, or maybe just one of them. But when I say, I want the kids to know, mom and dad have a plan in place. Here's what you need to know about the plan. Here's where we're going to find things when the time comes. And I want them to know you don't have to remember this. We use a red, binder for most of our estate plans, red 3-ring binder, because then when we come in for those annual review meetings, as we're updating the power of attorney, updating documents, we can take the old one out. And I tell clients, we're going to throw that in the shredder, right? If you keep it around, it just confuses things. We just updated, we've changed it. Don't keep it around. It confuses things for those we leave behind. Because they're like, oh gosh, this one says do this one says that. What's one? So we shred the old one, we put the new one in the binder. But in the back of that binder, we use a red tab. So the red binder, we have this red tab says 911 on it, right? What to do in an emergency. And we give them a checklist. Here's what to do in incapacity. Here's what to do at death. And we're walking them through. And we're creating this checklist a bit broadly. We don't have the crystal ball. We don't know what's going on in their life. So the time that our client's going to become incapacitated or died, So we're going to include some things on there that may or may not be applicable. If they're not applicable, fine, just cross them off, right? Take care of any pets, if any. Well, we don't have any pets. Okay, fine, cross it off. But we're going to have some things on there that may not be applicable. But they'll have their, here's when the tax returns due. Here's when the will has to be filed. High on that list, not number 1 or 2 typically, but high on the list is going to be reach out to us, because we don't know if something happened to our clients unless somebody tells us. So that family meeting makes sure that we create this communication. They know who to reach out to. We've got the checklist for them. And I tell the kids in that family meeting, you don't have to remember all this stuff. All you have to remember is red binder, red tab. That 911 tab's got the checklist. It's going to instruct them to reach out to us. And then we're going to walk them through that. And again, it's not that there's nothing to do, but this should be fairly easy. And they're going to go through, but they got to know when to file the tax return, all that. They just don't have to remember it all. The other thing that comes out of this that you were talking about is, that they're able to find this. And people are often concerned, well, do I give them copies? And I say, with caution, because if you're going to give the kids their, whoever's in charge, copies of the powers of attorneys and the will and the trust, then you have to make sure every time you make any updates. And we're going to be re-signing a new power of attorney every year because that document can get outdated. So typically we're going to re-sign it. We have to tell the kids, hey, make sure you shred the old one. Here's the new one. And they often say, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. But they're busy. They don't get around to it. And now we've created confusion. So my general recommendation for most people is, let's not give them copies. Let's make sure they know how to find the copies, where to find the copies. And today's world with digital, documents and everything, where we can make copies of things, we can use portals. We've got a secured portal through our website we can use for clients. We have DocuBank, which is a company that we're big believers in, that we can put documents in. We just want the kids to know where to find things when the time comes, because if you give them copies, now we often have created confusion because as things change, they're looking at the wrong document.
Right. And most of the time, copies work just as well as the originals. Although there are some situations where that's not the case, and we do need to know where the originals are, and you've got to have the original. So a will would be one of them. If you have a will, we've got to have the original will.
But even with that, with changes in law, we can make the copy can work. But yeah, we still like to see that original will that we come in. But I think, if we know, where to find things rather than, giving them copies of it, that's going to create problems.
Right.
So I absolutely agree.
Right. So you brought up DocuBank, and I think I just kind of want to talk a little bit more about what DocuBank is, because I think that I'm so impressed by them and what they do and offer, and I think it's something newer we've been offering for our clients and recommending, because it's just, we have it as well. We see the value in it. But what DocuBank is it's an online secure portal, place that you can store not just your documents, and that's one of the bigger priorities and reasons why we do this. It's a place you store all of your power of attorneys, your trust plan, all of those. So when you do make changes and you do update, that's where you go to find them. They're all right there. There's no multiple copies of that. It's all right there. But in addition to having the documents there, we also have, there's a place that you can put what medications you're on. If you're on all these different types of medications, oftentimes even the spouse doesn't even really know what medications the other spouse is on if they're not handling that. So you can list out what medications they're on DocuBank. You can, who your doctors are, who the people filling different roles, the healthcare agent, who they are, what their name is, it's in the power of attorney as well, but also how to contact them, what's their phone number. All of that is very important to have. And it's all right there, right? We have copies, and I did say that we have copies of all of our clients' documents, but if it's in the evening, if it's on the weekend and you're reaching out to us and trying to get the documents, we may not get back to you until the next
we didn't
week.
get the message, right?
Right. And so by having the DocuBank, I think they're a fantastic company, and they have that ability to get access to those documents immediately.
I learned of DocuBank years ago, but I didn't immediately see the value in that. And then a few years ago, I was talking to another attorney who sat with me on the Board of Governors with the American Academy of Estate Planners. And we were talking right before the governor's meeting began, and he was explaining how he used DocuBank in his practice. And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And so, but DocuBank, you said third-party company where we can upload these in. And I think especially on the healthcare documents, the value, the financial stuff, that generally, if you have to wait till Monday, that's fine. But healthcare documents is vital. We need that there. So yeah, to make sure that they're available 24/7, that first responders, emergency room personnel not only have access to the documents, but they know who the emergency contact is, how to get a hold of them. They know what medications, if any, the clients are on, because there can be interactions with medications, pre-existing conditions, personal, health history, all those things that can be made available 24/7 through DocuBank. It's a fantastic program. We believe in it enough to the point that we offer to, or our clients would say, look, we're going to help you set it up. We even pay for the first year. But I tell clients, after year one, right, if you see value in DocuBank after year one, that's between you and DocuBank. We're not going to pay forever. But just help them get set up. And we could go on and on about success stories of how this has helped our clients. But the idea, whether you use DocuBank or some other third-party company or however you do it, making sure that your family and loved ones and the people making decisions have access to the documents and the information they'll need when the time comes.
Right.
And with technology today in the world, it's easy to do, but we do have to be intentional, and we got to keep it updated. And that's what we see as part of our role for our clients, is to make sure we're keeping that stuff updated. So clients come in for your annual review meetings, right? Let's create that cadence, take us up on it coming in.
So we've done this. We know we need to have a family meeting. Well, who's involved in that family meeting? Who do we need to include in that discussion?
And that's going to vary from family to family. Right? Certainly the people that are making decisions, right? Whoever's making the financial decisions, healthcare decisions. So if you've named them as a, successor trustee, your power of attorney, for healthcare, power of attorney for finances, the executor will. Certainly those people need to know what their role is, where they're going to find the documents when the time comes, an overview of the plan, just so they understand how this all works, of how it's going to go in. But back to our belief that transparency goes a long ways in avoiding conflict and misunderstandings. I often say, let's bring the whole family in. Now, I get it. Family dynamics are, they can vary from family. Family do vary from family. So I tell clients, it's your meeting. You can bring as few or as many people as you want. And if we need to break it into a couple different meetings because we can't have people in the same room, we can do so. But we're going to have this meeting, and we're going to try to create some clarity around the roles and where to find things. And I want them to know about us. So, as I said, they don't have to remember everything. They can reach out to us, and we'll help them through this process.
Right. So, in figuring out who needs to be there, obviously it's up to each family and each, if it's the parent's decision of who needs to be there. One thing that I really like to point out is if we have minor children involved in the plan, and sometimes we do, is if we've gone through and we've appointed guardians of our children. It's usually one of the hardest decisions in the plan when you have minor children. And so when you've made that decision, who's it going to be? Well, we've said that, what happens if that guardian is across the country and that is the best person to be the guardian for your child? You've appointed them as a backup, but or as the permanent guardian, but maybe you've appointed a local temporary guardian to be able to fill that role. Mom and dad died that night. They don't have to go into foster care for the next couple of days until the court evaluates that permanent guardian across the country, make sure they're a good fit. So we have that temporary guardian. There's a lot of people involved in this plan, right? And I think it's so important to share that information that, hey, you're a guardian, and confirm that they're willing and able to do so and serve in that role.
Yeah, and we could have a whole segment on just that of, giving direction and guidance to our guardians about, family relations that are important to make sure you keep these up and all those type of things. But communicating to the people that need to know. And there can be various people. Some are playing temporary roles, some are playing permanent. So you want those people to know what the role is. but the people impact, the beneficiaries, for them to know that these are your decisions, how things are going to be divided. Typically, when we're having that meeting, we're not getting into how much money, right? I don't know how much money your beneficiaries are going to inherit because I don't know how much you have. If you live long enough to fully execute your plan, you're going to spend every last nickel. But whatever's left, if you don't fully get that plan executed, the beneficiaries are going to get whatever's left. So we can talk about it in percentages. Look, there's 3 of you beneficiaries are each getting a third, a third, a third. Here's how it's going to happen. Here's what you need to know about it. If there's specific distributions, the home's going to this person, or this is going to happen with the home, or certain family heirlooms. It's just communicating that stuff so they know it's your decision. And I get it. Not sometimes like, nope, I'm not stirring that pot. I'm not going there. Okay, at least the people that are responsible for dividing up, they need to know. But now they're going to be the bearer of the bad news, and they may get blamed for it. But I think having that meeting and then periodically coming back and revisiting, maybe not every year. The other thing I would say is this: that often it's like, well, but they're spread all over the country. Excuse me. And what we can often they don't have to be necessarily in person. Again, today's world, we can, have a phone call. We can Zoom them in. We're visual people. We like to be able to show a visual representation of how the plan works. I think it makes it so much easier for people to understand. But we can share, via Zoom or Zoom-like technologies, right, that we can share what the plan is. So it's just communication, creating clarity, creating transparency.
Right. And I think that goes a long ways. So what exactly, so we talked about, what do we need to share with the people at the family meeting? Well, we want to share, really it's up to the person. What are we going to share? And we don't need to share every last detail of the plan either. We need to share what's important and what they need to know. When we meet with clients on an annual basis, and that's what we do with our clients, right? We've signed the documents. Maybe we've had the family meeting. We funded the trust, right? If the trust was part of the plan, we've created the trust, and then we actually title assets into the name of the trust to make sure now the trust actually does what we want it to do. And we are reviewing that on an annual basis as well. If new assets have been acquired, we are making sure that it's retitled properly into the name of the trust as well. And so what we prepare is, we call it an asset detail report. So, it's a document that details what their assets are and make sure that it is titled into the name of the trust. Well, this is, I think, a very useful tool, not only for us to ensure that, yes, okay, they have properly moved assets into the trust and it is properly titled, and we've had that conversation with them. It's useful for them to verify that as well, but it's useful upon their incapacitation for those people that they've appointed in the plan to carry out the plan, and typically the assets in the trust are used for their benefit, to know where everything is, how are they titled, what the account numbers are, where they're located, what financial institution they're located at. And so that's on that report. So sharing that information, right, that's very specific details, and maybe not something we want to share at the family meeting specifically. Maybe in some situations that's okay. But at least knowing that, hey, there is this document out there, the attorney has it, or this is where I've kept it, is important. Then obviously upon the person's death, it's there as well. Revisiting that, updating that on an annual basis if possible. That would be, it's incredibly helpful to the people in your plan, involved in your plan, to know that is out there.
Yeah, so when we get a plan done, we're planning for people's assets as part of this. I mean, there's the health care and, all those things that come in as well, but we're planning for it. So making sure that things are titled properly, that beneficiary designations are all set up properly. And if we don't look at that stuff periodically, this is back to, the importance of an annual review. We got to look at that, because that stuff's going to change over time. So oh gosh, I closed that bank account up. That life insurance policy is no longer in existence. Oh, I got a new policy. Great. How do we title it? Who's the beneficiaries? We're going to help set that stuff up. And we do that in those annual reviews. So we encourage our clients, take us up on this. We're not charged for the annual review. Get in here, because we're going to confirm your plan choices. We're going to just make sure the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, the plan's still appropriate. But then we're going to look to those assets, because that stuff's changing a lot. But that report, if we keep it up to date, it's so helpful to those we leave behind, the family, because they know where the bank accounts are, where the life insurance was there, whether there was a storage unit, is there a lockbox at a bank, all those things. And we want to keep that up to date. And it does make it so much easier for those we leave behind. But in the family meeting, we're sharing, no, probably not, because that stuff's all changing.
Right.
And it just overcomplicates things. The thing in the family meeting, we want them to understand that there is a plan, an overview of the plan, go through, here's the plan design. Is it a will-based plan, trust-based plan? There's an overview. Who's playing the various different roles, what their roles are. I often, in fact, almost always, will let them know that I wrote in the plan that if they fight and argue about things, mom and dad will come back and haunt them relentlessly for the rest of the days of their life, right? They won't get another great night's sleep. Yeah. Don't fight and argue. But if we create this clarity and we create this transparency, we see so much less fighting. But we also want it to be easy. We don't want to be a burden, right? Those are the two biggest goals we have. Number one, I don't want to be burdened. Number two, I don't want my loved ones arguing and fighting about things. And if we do this planning right, we greatly, greatly increase the likelihood that we're going to achieve those two goals. It's not that there's nothing to do, but we've made it easy. When they don't even know where to find it. They don't know what the rules are. They didn't find it until it was too late. They've already gone to court. They didn't know this thing even existed. We blew it. We were a burden. And we increased the likelihood of arguing, fighting, misunderstandings, conflict. So if we do good planning, we let them know. The family meeting helps pull all this stuff together so that the plan works.
Right. So we've done this plan. We've had the family meeting, and a really big reason in having the family meeting is to make it simple, to make sure that people understand what the plan is and know what they need to do when the time comes. But on that note of making things simple and making it easy to administer, I do want to share that we do trustee school. And I think that's something that we offer to not only to our clients and our clients' families and their trustees, but also to the people in our area. We do that, I believe, twice a month at this time, and where our whole goal is to make this simple. We don't want to overcomplicate things. That's not the point of doing this. And so what we do at Trustees School is we're kind of doing a continuation of what we are doing at the family meeting. We're sharing with the trustees, the people appointed to carry out the plan, the trust. We're telling them what they need to know, how to serve as trustee. And one of the big things, again, that we do is we share, hey, reach out to us when the time comes that you are serving as trustee. Reach out. We'll guide you. We'll help you. We'll have another meeting with you. We don't charge for that. But our goal is to help, our clients have set up this plan, and we want to see it through to the end as simple and with the least amount of problems as possible.
Right. So education, we believe in that wholeheartedly. I want people to understand. That's the purpose of this podcast, right? We want to provide relevant, useful information to allow people to make plan choices that are, best for them and their families. And so educating people on different options we have. And so, trustee school is really designed around, okay, you're trustee, now what? What does that mean? So go through the duties, the responsibility, what it is. And again, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate this stuff, but there's still things to do. So that's a good one. Occasionally we'll do funding school. Funding is meaning, if we think of the trust as being like a safe, how do we get the assets in to the safe? How do we get it in? Well, that can also apply for those people, the family that's taking over. So these are, additional type of family meetings for those people, our clients, loved ones who can participate. There's no cost to these, so they can sign up, they can Zoom in, they can come in person, whatever it is. But those are add-ons. Those are like additional benefits. The what we term the family meeting, where you're getting into where to find things and giving the overview and creating clarity. That one's vital. The others are great for those who want to know, and I want to encourage people, learn more. We've never lost our passion for this. I've been doing this a long time, and still passionate about this stuff. And I find people, they want this information, and so we try to provide it to them. But the family meetings one, I just feel like we all need to have that meeting once we get the plan in place.
Right. Yep. I agree.
So one of the things I think that comes in too that we have not touched on with that family meeting is be able to answer questions, right, that come in. And so typically encouraging, the kids or whoever's in attendance to ask questions, to, again, seeking that kind of that clarity they come in. I have never yet had the family meeting. I've done a lot of them over the years. I've never had a family meeting where there's been arguing and fighting in there. There may be conversations that happen afterwards that, and I've heard of one or two where, somebody felt a little slighted or something that's happened over the years. But for the most part, they're not arguing and fighting, and we find it works well. But, encourage them to ask questions. And, clients, this is a starting point for it. So I think they can have continued conversations. I always encourage our clients, when it comes to things like the personal property, the baseball cards, the jewelry, the tools, the guns, the stuff that doesn't have titles. We see more arguing and fightings with families around that stuff than we do the money stock bonds, right? So what we encourage our clients, both Kansas and Missouri allow us to use something called a personal property memorandum to pass that stuff on. We're just happy, my generation and older are just happy if you kids want the stuff, right? Yeah. Because as I tell our clients, the kids don't want it. And by the way, neither does goodwill in today's world. Until it gets time, and all of a sudden there's been a death, and then it's like, oh yeah, I really do want that.
Right.
So
I think it takes the place of those sticky notes, right? People are going around putting sticky notes on all of their property and saying, hey, this table goes to this person. Well, right, that's
with the personal property memorandum.
That's what
and the law is pretty much not much more than that. It can be handwritten out. There's no formality to it. Describe the property with enough detail that we know what you're talking about, what necklace, what ring, whatever it is, who you want to receive it, date and sign it. It does not have to be notarized. There's no formality to it. Just list the property, who you want to receive it, date and sign it. What I encourage clients is kind of this is a continuation of this family meeting. In the family meeting, I'll tell the kids, look, if you have particular items of mom and dad's that you want, let them know. They're just happy that you want their stuff. Right. And maybe multiple of you want it. And we're going to have to make some decisions who gets it and how we're going to do this, unless you're going to pass it around year to year, like, bringing in like the traveling trophy. But usually we have to make some determinations. But they're just glad you know it. We want to know about that. We list it on this. And what I encourage clients is when you get together at the family holidays, and maybe you don't have them all together at the same time, but as you meet with the kids, have them initial off on this thing. Look, is there any of this stuff you want? This is who's getting this. Well, Mom, I thought I was going to get that. I wanted that. Okay, now Mom knows. Okay, well, hold on. I didn't know you wanted this. Your sister wants this as well. So, now Mom can make some decisions of how we're going to deal with that. But at least we're identifying that as a potential source of conflict before it becomes that way, before it's distributed out. So I encourage our clients to use the personal property memorandum, ask the questions, and then have the kids initial off on it. Is there anything else you want? No, that's all I want. All right. I want you to put your initial here. We've had this discussion about it. And I'll tell them that at the family meeting. And every year when we get together in the annual review meetings, that's one of the things I flip back to. So I've gone through confirmed plan choices. How's your health? How's everybody's health that you've, the people you've appointed? We go through the asset review, making sure everything's titled properly and, update that. And then I go back to that personal property memorandum. And is there anything listed here? And if is there anything you want to give? And if it's not there, fill it out. I'll go get us a cup of coffee here. It takes 5 minutes. Get it done. Right. But share it with your family.
Another thing that I think is important to be sharing with family at that family meeting is burial plans. And I think that's something that burial plans, funeral plans, all of those things. What songs do you want to be played at your funeral? We, in our estate planning binders, we include some forms in there to have you start thinking about that and making those decisions. But that's a great time to share that information, because if your whole goal is to not be a burden on your children, then one, I would say, make those decisions, get those plans in place, get your burial plan, your burial plot, your funeral plan, all of that paid for in advance, have it ready to go if you can. But then also make those little minor detail decisions so that upon your death, they're grieving. They don't have to now go to the funeral home and now make all these big decisions. How much would mom or dad wanted to have spent on this? Or did they want to be buried or cremated? I think they would have been this. And okay, we're going to now, next thing you know, they've spent $15,000 where really you would have been okay with that $700 cremation plan. So that's another topic that I think is very important to have. And it's not a fun one to have. A lot of what we do, it's not a fun we deal with a lot of people who are really excited about it, and we're excited about it and passionate about this. But dying, incapacitation, all of these things, it's not an exciting, fun topic to have, but I encourage everybody to have that conversation.
Well, yeah, it's pretty hard to find the $700 plan in today's world, but you're absolutely right. We're spending too much money coming in. All right, we are up against time here. Any closing comments you want to make?
Nope.
Just do the planning, have the family meeting. Once you get the plan done, communicate this stuff. All right, guys, with that, we are out of time. So I would encourage listeners to subscribe and share, like this podcast. If you find this to be useful and relevant, tune in to future episodes. You will find us on Spotify, YouTube, as well as Apple Podcasts. You'll also find us on our website at stocktonlaw.com, along with a lot of other resources that are available to you to help you make informed, relevant decisions about your estate plan. So until next time, thank you for tuning in.
The information provided in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship. Laws vary by state, and this podcast focuses on estate planning and elder law in Kansas and Missouri. If you are located in Kansas or Missouri and require legal advice, please contact our office. Otherwise, consult a qualified attorney licensed in your jurisdiction.